Hello everyone, welcome back to the live stream. We're finally here, a little bit more on time this time, about 4 minutes late for the commentary, but we did start, of course. The data beforehand, McLaren's out on track, we've got the Aston Martins as well. Welcome to Saturday. We had Friday sessions yesterday, some eventful moments there which we'll go through in a bit. First of all, I do want to apologise for yesterday if we had any mic issues. I'm hoping they're fixed today, but it doesn't look like it. So I'm going to try and check that on my live stream, and I'll be right back in about a minute's time. Alright, there seems to be a few issues, but hopefully not too much. I really don't understand why it's doing what it's doing because I haven't changed any settings. But it is what it is. Nothing we can do about that now, other than continue with the session, and I think it's good enough to continue with the session. And I do apologise, I'll be right back. Just trying to make sure everything's synced. And then we'll be good to go. Alright, sorry, we're back. Finally, now we can actually start with the session properly. No one's setting lap times yet, just hard tyre running as they begin. No chance of rain, but there was at least a message for a chance of rain. We got a similar temperature as we did to the FP3 session yesterday, kind of smack bang in the middle of the morning and... sorry, not FP3, FP2. Smack bang in the middle of the FP1 and FP2 session temperature-wise. So, interesting stuff there on the track. It's fairly hot as well. And you wonder which series will have just run before. It's probably F2, I think, if they run here this weekend. I believe they usually do run at the Hungarian. So I would be surprised if they didn't do that. But just quickly having a look at that. Right, I do apologise for the delay. Just sorting all that stuff out. I'm trying to have a look at the weather as well, just to make sure that we have all the information possible, because that will be very useful, considering we've just had that notification. So as we said yesterday, there was a note for thunderstorms potentially this weekend, but it doesn't necessarily look like that will happen. We haven't had a time lapse yet. We've just seen a few drivers go for a couple out laps. We've got Colapinto, however, starting a lap at 28.2 already, or 3, sorry, which is fairly rapid off the bat on the soft tyre though. So the Alpine will set the lap first, or set a lap first, it looks like, at least, unless they immediately go into the pit lane and take away every little bit of credibility I may have had. But I will look at the weather a bit more. So we've got not really a chance of rain today. Tomorrow, however, it looks like we're going to see 20% chance, 10 to 20% chance of rain. So maybe rain in the morning, which could make the circuit pretty cold and low grip. That's what we're looking at. Other than that, probably not going to change too much. So yeah, that's how it's going. Historically, in the Hungarian Grand Prix event, we've had Hamilton win 8 times, Michael Schumacher 4, Senna 3, and then lots of drivers joining for 2 times, including Max Verstappen, Vettel, Button, and a few others. So Hamilton, the most successful driver at this circuit by a little bit of a mile. Of course, their most successful circuit is at Silverstone, but they missed out on the podium this season so far. Will they be able to get a podium here in Hungary? That would be pretty good to see for their woes, but it is Charles Leclerc, his teammate, who has really performed well so far this weekend. They showed a brilliant pace behind the McLarens, and they were really the only one that could actually compete with the McLarens, albeit still being a couple of tenths behind here and there. So it's yeah, a difficult one for everybody else, but everybody else is at least close together, very close together, which is good to see for our entertainment. But it does show that the McLarens are still very far ahead and very clear. We could get the same podium as we had in Spa, which would be interesting, wouldn't it? It would also help Oscar Piastri extend their championship lead before the summer break. Summer break, lots of weeks to try and relax and recoup, but you don't want to have a bad race before the summer break, because then you've got many weeks to wait until the next race, which is frustrating, that's for sure. Very frustrating. You don't want to have a bad race and then have to sit on it for a while. You want to make sure that you have a good race, so then you can have good momentum when you start the next half of the season once again. And it's scary to say that we're already in the second half effectively, and we're definitely going to solidify our way into that with the summer break coming in. looking at the historic win kind of history of this circuit, you can see there's a scatter of drivers throughout the entirety, and then all of a sudden you've got Lewis Hamilton just everywhere throughout the modern era. That being said, since 2021 he hasn't won a race here. That was Ocon, Verstappen and Piastri. I remember in 2019 Verstappen got his first ever pole position around here, and I thought he was going to win the race, but Hamilton managed to get there in the end to win their second Hungarian Grand Prix on the bounce, and they went on to win next year as well, so 3 in a row it was for them. That's the most they did around the circuit. They did previously 2 in a row earlier on in the 2010s as well. Other than that, they were split by Sebastian Vettel a few times, Button, Ricciardo, Webber. Kovalainen took, I think, their only victory around here as well, which is interesting because they were Lewis Hamilton's teammates, so to beat him at a circuit that he's so good at is not really heard of, to be honest. But the McLarens were the most successful, or are the most successful car around this circuit, so if you're in a McLaren, you might have a good chance of winning this race. So far, only 4 drivers that have set a time lap, but 8 drivers have come out on track at least. We're going to see Yuki Tsunoda, I think, go for a lap, so hopefully we can find out the Red Bull's pace from that. But once again, it is the Alpines who are both out. We saw, of course, both Aston Martins come out, but Stroll was the only one of those 2 to set the lap time, a 17.5. So it was Colapinto who didn't set a terrible first sector. It was still not super competitive, but they went and did an 18.0. A 17.5 is a bit more like it from Lance Stroll. But if you look at the FP2 times yesterday, a 15.6 is what we were looking at. So we're still a way off from that 15.6. Only 15 minutes into the session, and we'll probably see quite a few soft tyre runners a little bit later on. That being said, a few drivers have started their session on the soft tyres already, so the hards and mediums will be maybe used later on in the session compared to the softs. You usually see a lot of hards and medium running, then some soft running, and then they go back to hards. That's for the Friday sessions. It's now changed onto Saturday. It could, of course, be that they're trying to allow the circuit to go a little bit longer so they can get the most optimal conditions to simulate what it will be like for qualifying later on today. They're talking about how Max Verstappen's had some issues so far this weekend, but Yuki Tsunoda finding some confidence at least, which is great to see. The Japanese driver, they could have maybe scored points in Spa, but they didn't quite get the job done due to a strategy situation. As we checked the weather before, we might not get any rain, so it could make it a little bit more straightforward. Can we see Yuki Tsunoda, who goes P1, or who is P1, go into the top 10 for qualifying and then compete for points in the race? We'll find out in a few hours' time. It would be good to see them do something. Lance Stroll now leads as Max Verstappen comes through the final two corners, and it's going fairly quickly, very nice and fast in the first, and purple in the middle, and up to P1. 2.5 tenths, that's almost 5 tenths ahead of Tsunoda, and effectively what we kind of expect gap-wise from historical showings. Now, as I was saying before I quickly had to go, Yuki Tsunoda is still a little way off, but it's Max Verstappen who's found some confidence, as we expected. Finishing, I think, P14 in FP2 yesterday and having a P9 in FP1, if I remember correctly. It was looking pretty bad, but it has looked pretty bad on the Friday for the Red Bull team quite consistently, and then they managed to pull it together ready for Saturday and then the race, and that is exactly being shown right now. Once again, a lot of soft tyre running right now, some medium, but barely any hards. We saw, I think, the Aston Martins come out on track onto the hard tyre just to do an outlap, but not actually a time lap. That's Charles Leclerc going purple in the middle sector, beating that of Verstappen. Not going purple in the first, as Russell goes and takes that one away immediately. Russell's gone and taken that one away. And a 21.4. Not really too far away, but also not purple in the middle sector for Russell. Still a tenth or so ahead of Charles Leclerc in the first sector, though. And a little bit in the final. That's where they've gained all that lap time. A tenth ahead in the overall lap is Verstappen, who's now almost half tenths away from Leclerc himself. Then it's the teammate of the other Ferrari, which is Lewis Hamilton, would you believe it? Oh, and that's half a second away from George Russell's time. Their former teammate, then Lance Stroll. We've got Hülkenberg, Tsunoda, Antonelli, Gasly, Bortoleto, Alonso in P11, and then we've got Colapinto, Hadjar, Lawson, Norris, and then Piastri, but Piastri just goes to P1 and takes away the middle and final purple sector for themselves, which is a very nice job done indeed. 21.4 in that final sector, and getting just over half a tenth ahead of Russell. Albon currently the only driver to not set a lap time now, but they are on their way to do so at 28.409 in the first sector. Very far ahead their teammate in the middle sector as well. I'm expecting to see that be the same for them in the next one. It was Sainz who went for a very slow lap there. But still way off in that first sector. 27s is what we're looking at, really. So effectively half a second away. Verstappen 27.832 goes faster than their previous. It goes into the middle sector, purple over anyone. So looking to try and get close to the top position. If the top position completely 0.3 improvement, they would need to do so. And then across the line for Verstappen, and it is their P1. Just under 0.5 of a second there for the Dutchman. Pretty quick everywhere. Only purple in the middle sector. That's good enough though. We've got Piastri leaving the pit lane again on their same set of soft tyres. Looking to maybe go another fast lap. It's Russell who went into the pit lane. It's Charles Leclerc who stayed out on track right now. Norris since went up to P5. They've come back out on track as Oscar Piastri has. And they're 0.4 away from Verstappen's time and pretty much 4.5 away from their teammate Piastri's time as well. The man who was fastest in FP1 and FP2. By a little bit of a margin in FP2. FP1 it was a bit closer. They've got good momentum this weekend so far. Oscar Piastri may have won the Grand Prix last year. But Lando Norris seems to be strong and is looking to try and have a positive impact on their championship before they go for that summer break and make a little bit of a dent in that 16-point lead that the Australian has. Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda having a little bit of a tangle up, not crashing, but just getting in each other's way, it seems. I think they're all sorted out, so they're good to go for now. Less grip on the circuit as there was yesterday. Would we go faster than we did yesterday in FP2? Still possible, maybe just not by a massive margin. Just have a look at the times right now. We've got a 16.1. So we are almost matching the fastest time of a 16.052 for the FP1 time. But FP2 is a 15.624. So we've still got 5 tenths to go, half a second, just over. And then we'll see how quick we really can go. Alrighty, something that I didn't talk about yesterday is that this circuit has had a revamp. Doesn't affect the circuit itself for the racing, but it does look pretty good. Overall, hospitality has been improved. A circuit that I have seen being quite popular by many fans, recent and old. I do apologise for the constant pauses, but I have some sort of issue with my throat. So I'm trying my best. I'm also trying to speak loud enough that the microphone actually picks me up, because it seems to be having a little bit of a weird one. Well, OBS does at least. Which is, of course, the live streaming software. As some may be familiar. 28 minutes on the clock, over halfway of the session. Done. And less to go. It's Piastri leading the way with a 15.8 as they make more improvements here in the session. That was their last lap. And we're now only a couple of tenths away from matching the best yesterday. So maybe it's going to be a little bit more easy than I thought it would be. Hamilton follows on a tenth and a half away. Then it's Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, Bortoleto, Russell, Antonelli, Stroll and Hulkenberg in P10. It's then Yuki Tsunoda in P11 with Hadjar, Gasly, Lawson, Sainz, Alonso, Ocon, Behrman, Colapinto and Albon, as Behrman just improves as we are speaking. Now, the two Ferraris about a tenth just over away from each other. That's more like it for Hamilton for now. But of course, still some lap time to be gained by all the drivers. It's Verstappen P4. A 16.202 compared to the 16.878. 6 tenths away from their teammate, Yuki Tsunoda. And ahead this time instead of behind. Which isn't good for Yuki, but great for Max. Bortoleto having a good session so far, of course, and Hulkenberg not too far off as well. All things considered, I say that. They are actually quite far off. A 16.2 versus a 16.8. But position-wise, the Saubers are enjoying this one. Still lots of soft tyre running, some medium tyre running, not any hard tyre running yet. We're yet to see that. I mean, I will have a quick look at the tyre situation just to double check that. We've had just a few laps on a few hard tyres from a few drivers, but it's pretty much just been out laps. Other than that, it's all mostly been mediums and softs. That's Albon to P15. That's his teammate in P17. And as Albon said before the weekend begun, there seems to be the circuit behind Barcelona that will be a bad track for us. They had a terrible weekend back in Barcelona. So we're going to be looking to just try and see them do damage limitation here at Hungary. Are we expecting the Williams to get any points? They might be able to get close if they pull the strategy right, but as they said and as they are proving, it's going to be a difficult circuit for them. Second worst behind that Spain race. Which is a shame for Carlos, because that was their home Grand Prix, which they've never not scored points in. But they did at least finish the race, even if it was at the very back of the pack. That was Albon who retired. Unless Sainz retired later on in the race, I'm not entirely sure. I think I'm getting confused with Bahrain. What software do we use for timings? This is multi-viewer to display the timings. To stream is OBS, but to receive the timings you have to get F1 TV access if you're in the UK, which is £20 a month for UK prices. If you're in certain parts of Europe and other places in the world, you may be eligible to get F1 TV Pro, which is a bit more money a year, but you do get to watch the F1 races live and all the sessions as well. F1 TV Access, you just get the live timing data, you get some live commentary, but no pictures, and then you also get to look at previous archive races, so previous seasons, from quite a long way back as well, which is brilliant to see. And there are full races. You can get some highlights as well if you don't want to watch the full races. So definitely worth 20 quid if you are in the UK. Obviously, TV Pro is brilliant, but only if you're actually allowed to access it. But yeah, that's the rundown. A few things to make this happen. No problem, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Good to see you, and I'm glad I could help. And someone that's trying to help is Alonso. After their session absence from FP1, they're now making more progress, up to P9 now ahead of Stroll. I think they got beaten by Stroll yesterday in FP2 when they did finally turn up. And I say turn up, not like they were just giving up. They actually wanted to take some time out because of an injury and make sure they allowed themselves to recover as much as possible. It was claimed by Alonso that they didn't feel any back pain or just muscle pain from their injury once driving the car. But you know, that's Fernando Alonso, and he might be saying that to the FIA and to his team to make sure that he is allowed to get in that car and race it. So maybe he is in pain, maybe he's not. We don't know. We never will know. But P9 for them. And it's Carlos Sainz who just goes to P10. And considering what we've just been saying, and they've been saying about that Williams, that's brilliant. Hajar's not happy with the traffic right now. It is a short lap with lots of corners, so it's easier to... I say lots of corners, it's got a few corners, it's got short straights, and usually it's quite easy to move out the way on a straight, and it's harder to move out the way in a corner. So everybody does get in the way of each other. usually in Formula 1, you see lots of traffic in practice when it comes to qualifying, and nobody gets in each other's way. You get some very occasional moments in qualifying where drivers get in each other's way. I think the last time we saw somebody actually get impeded in qualifying was the Monaco Grand Prix, which is completely expected. I may be wrong on that. And of course, we didn't stream the Belgian Grand Prix. But so far as I remember, that's where it was. "19 minutes on the clock and still a lot of soft and medium tyre running. But so far it seems it's been pretty smooth, other than a few trafficked, impeded runs from a few drivers. We haven't seen any towels being thrown on the track like we saw yesterday in FP2 from Max Verstappen. He had a rag that was used to wipe his visor in between runs in the session that was left there. Had to pull over to the side of the circuit and then throw it away, and they said that that was the safest way, because otherwise it would possibly go into their pedal box and they wouldn't be able to control the car properly. Completely fine, said the FIA, and they gave the Red Bull team a warning instead, and that was all. It was Carlos Sainz yesterday, who also in FP2 had some issues. They lost all comms and telemetry just for a few moments, and then everything came back together. That was Lawson who seemed to get impeded by that moment, and I think they got impeded in a few other moments as well. And although in FP1 I think it was the Alpines who were at the back of the pack, Gasly found some performance over his teammate, and as they have currently as well, 1.1 seconds away from the pole time for Colapinto right now, and 0.9 tenths away from Gasly, also is Gasly from that pole time. That is Pierre with a 16.7, so a couple of tenths ahead. Not as big as a gap as we've seen so far, and they are in the mix, of course, ahead of a few other drivers. So maybe this could be a good weekend for the Argentine driver. Colapinto has had his struggles, of course, so far this season, but they did have a race weekend, and I can't remember which one it was now, where they were ahead of Gasly for the whole of it, or at least for the qualifying and then the race session. I want to say the Canadian Grand Prix, but I feel like I'm wrong, so I feel like I'm going to be very embarrassed by saying that. I'm just going to double check it and see. And it was the Canadian Grand Prix. Wow, I did not expect to remember that one. And they did manage to beat them in both quali and the race in the end. But it's all about Hungary. And I believe, yes, it's Colapinto's first time driving a Formula 1 car around the Hungarian Grand Prix circuit, because they drove a Formula 1 car around the Italian Grand Prix circuit. So they've got one more race to go through until they get to effectively a year in Formula 1. Of course, they missed out on Australia at the start of the year and Bahrain, etc. But they've almost done an entirety of a calendar now, just minus a few, as Jack Doohan started the season for the Alpine squad. Bortoleto very strong so far, 3.87 tenths away from Piastri, but Piastri is going mighty in the first sector with a purple sector on the fresh soft tyres. So is Hamilton, and so is Norris on those fresh tyres. Outlaps for both of them, it looks like. Well, at least for Hamilton. It's a 26.2 for Piastri in the middle sector, and we'll wait to see what the Papaya car can do as they cross the line. It's going to be a pretty good one, that's for sure. There you go, third sector, and a 14.9, and we destroy the lap time that we saw yesterday of a 15.6. A 14.9 is absolutely huge and great to see. A lovely lap time there, and that's about 7 tenths improvement. So what can Hamilton and Norris do? What can a few other drivers do? We've got Verstappen going for this soft tire. We've got Stroll, Hulkenberg, Sonoda as well. lots of cars will be doing the same run plan as well. Now I want to have a quick look at the lap record if I can, just to double check where we are at. And it's a 16.7 from Michael Schumacher. I guess that's the race lap record. I just want to look at the qualifying one realistically, and it still says a 16-second lap time, but I really don't believe it. Fastest lap, a 13.45 from the W11 back in 2020. A 13.45 is absolutely huge. We're not that far away from it, to be honest, considering we're in such a different era. But still over a second away. So, yeah, big margins. 1.5 seconds effectively. Lando Norris goes purple in the final sector. Doesn't beat their teammate in the first and middle, but gets close. Gets very close indeed. And we're almost into the 20-second margin in the final sector, which is absolutely huge. Stroll to P4, 9 tenths away from Piastri still, as the two McLarens now break away on their own. It was Hamilton who did just improve to a 15.6, almost getting to the top time of yesterday's FP2 session, but that's a huge 7.5 tenths almost away from Norris, which is absolutely brutal. Hulkenberg to P5, they try and catch up to Lance Stroll. We've got Leclerc, we've got Verstappen going across the line. What can Max do as they come out into the final corner now? Antonelli crosses the line to start their next run, and everybody is currently on that soft tyre at set from Charles Leclerc. And there's Max Verstappen, who does improve, not really position-wise, gets very close to the back of Charles Leclerc. But not exactly what they want. Maybe the performance isn't quite there to push it. Yuki Tsunoda complains that they were in the wrong setting before they went for their push lap, so that's why they're not quite up to pace here. That's not what he wants, because now he's used that peak performance off that tyre. He's going to have to go again. They've backed off on this lap. I don't know if they're going to be able to go again or not. That is a yellow flag. Double yellows. Clear. Not entirely sure what that was for, though. Well, it is Piastri who is waiting at the first corner. Doesn't really make sense. Sector 18. That was Liam Lawson spinning. That's what it was. But yeah, Liam Lawson going for the spin. It's Charles Leclerc who once again picks up the pace. Is fairly away from his teammate. 3.5 tenths ahead of his teammate, and almost exactly the same gap that they have between the McLaren. So splitting them for sure. Performing very well in the last 2 weekends, and we haven't even got to the qualifying and race session yet. It's Antonelli up to P5, but it's Verstappen all the way back down to P12. So complaining that they've tried to fix the rear end, but now it's all of a sudden incredibly understeery, and then a big swear word, which I was not audible, unfortunately. The P12 for Max, a 16.1 is pretty disappointing considering what they were doing earlier on. So Red Bull looking like they had turned things around ready for Saturday to begin this session, and now it's just completely flipped on its head. You see a somewhat familiar sight of the 1-2 McLaren and then the 3-4 Ferrari, as we have seen a couple of times recently. Is that Antonelli, who's ahead of his teammate, not by that much though, so the two Mercedes are very close together, and the two Aston Martins are incredibly close together, having a brilliant weekend so far. Despite having that setback from Alonso in the early stages of yesterday, is working really well. And to be fair, Sauber, they're enjoying their sessions so far as well. Not so much yesterday maybe, but right now they've got it dialed in. Behrman making some progress, whereas his teammate is all the way at the back. It always seems to be that Haas don't have that much pace, but in the race they can try and bring it back. Very different to what we saw in the likes of 2022. And I think 2023, but 24 and 25, or maybe not even 24 actually, but 25 it's definitely changed a lot. So they're hoping that Ferrari can do quite well because they're generally better in race pace than they are in outright pace. That kind of becomes invalid when you've got Charles Leclerc in the car, who is the qualifying king. But it does of course mean that that's good for a strong result for the Ferrari, but I really don't believe that the Ferrari's good race performance would be enough to really get in front of the McLarens. Because that McLaren is also a very good race car, so they're probably going to pick it up even more so. So you've got almost an impossible task to really deal with. Now we've got just over 5 minutes left of the session, and we'll go through the order once again. It's Piastri with a 14.916 in P1, and it's Norris, who's not too far away, in P2. Then it's Leclerc, Hamilton, Antonelli, Alonso, Stroll, Russell, Bortoleto, Hülkenberg, and then it's Behrman in P11. We've got Verstappen, Sainz, Colapinto, Albon, Gasly, Tsunoda, Hadjar, Lawson, and Esteban Ocon at the back. We've got 2-second gap from Ocon to Piastri. We've then got a just under 1 second gap from Piastri to Russell. That's from P1 to P8. So we've got quite a big performance gap here compared to what we've had in recent times here in Formula 1, which isn't ideal, of course, for competitiveness. Yesterday, we had an incredibly close grid, and it seems that that is the same so far, except from the top three, who are just in a different level right now, whether that be McLaren or Charles Leclerc. If you look at the rest of the grid, maybe take away the final few drivers and take away the top few drivers, the gaps are not really that big, and it would be a brilliant race weekend that we could see. There's a few gaps here and there in that, but it looks all good for now. Not many improvements going on, and with 5 minutes to go, you don't usually see that many improvements. Once again, I'll say that we haven't seen that much hard running at all. We've seen a couple of outlaps here or there. But it's mostly just been softs and mediums. Looking for that running of qualifying spec, which is incredibly important around a circuit that's hard to overtake at. The dirty air is going to be pretty brutal, and the rear tyre wear is going to be very difficult as well. And if you've got dirty air and not really that easy overtaking opportunities, then to try and deal with the rear tyres, that's going to be absolutely brutal. It's crucial around here. Strategy is an absolute nightmare, but if you get it right, you can gain massively. And that's Hadjar and Sonoda that are hoping that this time their team can get the strategy right as they didn't before. Before this session ends, of course, remember that we will be streaming for the qualifying session a little bit later on. And of course for the LSI races in the evening time as well for our Dutch Grand Prix and the F1 games, so do be sure to watch that one. But we'll also maybe be here for tomorrow for the race, commentary wise. It might happen, might not, we'll see. But qualifying a little bit later on in a few hours time, that's going to be absolutely awesome around a high downforce circuit, seeing the cars dial it in. Wow, it's going to be a spectacle. It is going to be a spectacle. Three minutes on the clock now and a few cars in the pit lane. We had an improvement in the first sector for Antonelli, but never really going to see a massive improvement with this stage of the session being as it is. But what you do get to see is every car effectively going into the pit lane and coming back out at the last second to get ready for a practice start. Everybody likes the practice starts. That's what they want. That's why they all come out on some scrub tyres mostly. Now we see the McLarens very close together, and so far it looks like Piastri's now going to top Norris. We saw Lando be the quicker driver on the Friday, but seeming to be the quicker driver here is the Aussie. And that should set up for a pretty good race. I was talking to some of the other LSI members yesterday, and they were saying, I kind of wish McLaren would just fight each other, you know? It would be quite entertaining if we could see the cars actually battle. And whenever they get close together, it doesn't really go too far. They kind of just sort it out on the radio comms. They're so far ahead in the championship, they want them to try and give it a little bit of a battle. Some entertainment. Are they going to wait until after the summer break to do that? I don't know. I think it really depends on who ends up where in a few races time, because yeah, Norris is going to have to make it crunch time, get a move on, and Piastri's going to have to defend with everything they can, so it will inevitably get a little bit feisty, I think. You never know in Formula 1 whenever your first or last chance is going to be to compete for a world title, so you have to take everything as it comes, especially when a regulation change is coming. So Piastri, Norris, they're going to have to fight it. I think if they don't fight each other hard, they're going to regret it. And with the gap that they have to the rest of the field, especially for the constructors, they might as well do it for the drivers. Anyway, less than 30 seconds on the clock now. We do actually get a late improvement from Colapinto to P13. And they are a little way ahead now of their teammate by 3/10, so Colapinto enjoying the circuit more than the others. And they've only got a couple of Grand Prix left, 2 Grand Prix until they get to a circuit that they're familiar with an F1 car at least. So we'll see. Will Colapinto have some confidence there? That's the session done, and the checkered flag will be taken. Everybody leaving the pit lane, 20 cars. That's Tsunoda who takes the flag first. And it was a pretty chill session. We've had Gasly on 20 laps for the entire session. And everybody was fairly consistent. Compared to yesterday especially, pretty chill runnings. It wasn't quite so the case on Friday. But that's all done and dusted. And we'll let a few more drivers go around just to double check that we're not getting any improvements. Because we had a few improvements in a few sectors. That's Gasly and Tsunoda, of course, improving. But I want to have a look at a few more drivers just to see before we do read the order out, before it goes and changes. Of course, it's Colapinto who gave that final improvement, that final burst. But I think we can confirm that it will be Oscar Piastri who tops the times here in FP3 to finish off the 3rd practice. And the final practice, a 14.916 is the lap time. The only other driver was their teammate to put it into the 14s, but that was a 9.48, very close to each other are the 2 McLarens. Then it's Leclerc, who was 3.5 tenths away from Lando Norris, about 4 tenths away from Piastri, and then it's Hamilton, who was about 3.5 tenths away from his teammate. Then we've got Antonelli, we've got Alonso, we've got Stroll, and we've got Russell, all very close together with each other. Then we've got Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, and Behrman. Verstappen in P12 having a really difficult session, complaining about understeer after they're trying to fix the rear end. And then it's Colapinto, Lawson, Sainz, Albon, Ocon, and then we've got Gasly, Tsunoda, and Hadjar. Tsunoda complaining about being put in the wrong setting at the very end there when they were trying to set their fast, soft lap time. Hadjar complaining about a few issues with traffic throughout the session, but it's the Williams who had a pretty tough session at a circuit that they're expected to do badly at according to their statement. We've got Colapinto who's outperforming his teammate, which is a good confidence boost for him, but we'll know that Gasly is probably going to have a pretty good qualifying session later on and really bring it up. Red Bull have got a few questions to answer, and we've got Behrman who's had some pretty good performance there over their teammate. Sauber, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari and McLaren all having a fairly promising weekend so far, with all being in the top 10 and close to each other. That's pretty standard stuff there, or pretty good stuff there for those teams indeed. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in a few hours' time for qualifying. Who do I think is going to go for pole? I think it's going to be Lando Norris, Piastri and Leclerc. It's going to be, I'm so boring, but I think it's going to be Lando Norris who brings it up here for qualifying a little bit later on. I just have a feeling. And I think he might win the Hungarian Grand Prix as Piastri did last year. We'll see how it goes. It could change. We could see somebody jump up. We could see Max Verstappen dial things in ready for that qualifying. That would be pretty good to see, as they are having a torrid time right now, not even in a points-paying position if this was to be the final race order. Again, thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you in a bit. Bye-bye.